Okay, so I'm going to record through just some feedback on the game that we just played. I'm just going to do this straight off the bat. I'm not going to do any interesting editing or worrying about this in too much detail. I'm just going to talk you through what's going on in the game and talk about some main sort of key sort of turning points of where the game changed, why I managed to win here, and just any general feedback I can give you to help you out on some little bits that happened in this game. I'm actually going to do it from your Fog of War so that I can kind of give you feedback based on just the stuff that you see, because I want to try and show to you the sort of thinking that you should be doing as you're playing these games, because you're going to need to do this thinking on your own, obviously, when you're up against the others. In this game, the aim that we're trying to get to is we want you to have APCs on the pads, holding them down really solid, and then you defending them with the other units. The idea being that you can quite confidently control two pads doing that. And the reason why the APC is so strong at this is because not only does it have a huge amount of health, but there's no real easy way of countering that APC without then yourself getting countered back by the missile unit that comes out. So even if somebody sends in an anti-tank vehicle to kill the APC, as soon as they kill the APC, the rocket squad's going to come out and start destroying the vehicle. Same for if you try and bring an air anti-vehicle, all of a sudden it's very unlikely that an air anti-vehicle unit is going to be able to deal with an infantry anti-air unit, the rocket unit inside. So that's essentially what you're trying to do here. You've got Strong Arm, which has some really, really strong positions on the map here to stop your opponent from getting onto multiple pads, actually. But we'll see sort of how that happens, and I'll talk you through a little bit why I was using the turret the way that I was as well. So at the beginning, you know, I'm playing Strong Arm. That probably means I'm playing an aggressive deck as well. Some people do use Strong Arm in tech decks, but it's less common. Since we're both going to be playing aggressively, there actually isn't much reason for you to rush a unit out straight away to scout me. Because if we both rush units out to scout, the pads are just going to stall, and that's not really in either of our game plans. We're both playing aggressive, or relatively aggressive decks, and we kind of just want the missile not stalling. We want it charging as quickly as possible. So though actually, even if I send out a unit first, that's kind of still in your favor as such, or you can deal with it if you need to stall it later on. So actually it's worth you opening Harvester first, and I think if we look at this is actually what we both did.
Harvester ready.
Right, so your Harvester goes out, fine, and then you build your barracks and send out your scouting unit, see what I'm up to. Now, you immediately see my rifles here, and then good micro, you decide not to move in. I was going to get defender's advantage there if your unit carried on moving. You build a second rifle to try and counter them, fine, makes sense, but then you see my second rifle unit, so we're in this little stalemate. Now, the pads are stalling, I step off to get the pads charging, and I think part of the reason why I was thinking through this is because your deck is probably stronger in terms of the more expensive units as such, maybe not. But then I changed my mind and I'm like, no, actually, that's it. I want to start charging. I want to start pressuring on the pads. I want to build a Talon to easily clear out this infantry or force you into a fight, basically. I'm assuming you actually preempted the Talon coming out, which is really nice, and you built the Pitbull. I have nothing to do with the Pitbull at this point, and I've actually got 3 units in play. So I actually need to save up money or to have something to die so that I can efficiently deal with the Pitbull. We start getting into a bit of a fight, see what happens.
Unit lost.
I get defender's advantage, and I've got the Talon, so your riflemen are going to go down. Defender's advantage down the bottom, so my riflemen are going to go as well. And then I build the rockets in response to the Pitbull. Now, you've just seen me build that tower in that spot there. That turret actually is in a really awkward position for you, because you can't walk a unit onto the top pad without going straight into the turret. And you can't even walk a unit onto the bottom right pad without having to go all the way around the rock on the right and past your Harvester, which is going to take forever. So where the Pitbull is now is kind of your only safe route to that pad. So even putting the turret in that spot right at the top there, it's actually kind of half controlling 2 pads at the same time. So let's see, I think this puts you in a bit of an awkward spot. You've got a couple of Pitbulls though, I need my slow-ass missiles to deal with it, so we start getting a bit of a fight there. See, your riflemen cannot get into the spot to take out those missiles at that point because my turret was in that advantageous position. Now, good stalling the pads, good trying to take down the Talon. Right, and out comes the APC. Now, this is the key moment. The APC can actually counter both the Rifleman and the Talon, so it's really, really good if you can get that on the top pad. I pop down the turret to stop the rifles from being able to get on too quickly, keeps the missile stalled, take out the pit bull, and then this is where I think I managed to take over and control the pads. Yeah, okay. Throwing away those rifles on my turret, unfortunately, was a bit wasteful. I think you just got a little bit unlucky in terms of the positioning. I see you actively trying to make really good unit counters. I see you trying to move them efficiently, you know. It just... I think what's missing at this moment is your turret over on the right there. I can understand why you're using it as kind of a really quick response way of trying to deal with the missiles that were there, and also the Talon that's there at the moment is going to go down, but that spot for your tower really is not doing much at all, because I can still contest that pad on the bottom right by standing on the hex that's out of the range of the turret, and it's not stopping me from getting anywhere else. I can still go on to the other two pads anyway. So I can understand why you might want to build it in response to trying to kill a unit that's right there, but I'm either going to throw that unit away because I don't want it, or I'm going to step it away from the turret anyway, and it's a bit of a waste. So what you want to try and do is be a lot more aggressive with your turret positioning, so that it forces me into some really awkward situations where I have to throw units into it, and that's where it gets the most value. Let's carry on. I've got an MLRS out to try and pop open your APC, and then I'm bringing out the rifleman to deal with the missile squad inside. Probably my most efficient way of dealing with your APCs, but it is a little bit slow. Now the pit bull at this point is just going to die to the MLRS. I'm not sure whether you sacrificed that on purpose. In terms of economy right now, you are a little bit behind on the Tiberium. So I've got 170 plus about 110 Tiberium's worth of units on the battlefield, and you've got 110 and 80 Tiberium on the battlefield. So you are actually playing from slightly behind here. Building the pit bull at this point is a mistake. There's no reason for you to have that pit bull in play at this point. There's nothing for it to fight. It can't sneak around to the harvester because the MLRS is in the top row and the missiles are in the bottom row. So that's a mistake, unfortunately, at this point. The safest unit right now is actually a Talon for dealing with the infantry, or even your drone swarms. You can't really get an APC on the pad until you deal with this MLRS. So what you want to do is you want to switch into air at this point. I have my missile squad down the bottom which can shoot up, but they're currently fighting your rifles. There's only 3 of them, they're on about half health. Switching into your air at this point is what you would want to do. It'll be expensive and it'll take up quite a lot of your money, but I can't respond that quickly when I've got this many units on the battlefield. I have 4 units at the moment, which you can probably think, okay, he's pretty full up on units, he might not be able to build something. This is your window to get the Orca out, and you'd actually probably be able to sneak across and just completely nuke the MLRS without actually even getting stopped. So I think this is one of the key points where the game is going to go sour for you. If that pit bull had been an Orca, this would have gone a completely different way. Let's see what happens. Okay, so you go into an APC. Unfortunately, that's not going to be able to camp on the pad until you deal with the MLRS. Even though it takes 2 salvos from the MLRS to kill it, it's got to sit in a position where it can't be killed, and this is just not going to happen with me being there in that position. Then, unfortunately, comes out the second MLRS, so you try to respond by bringing out missiles, which makes a lot of sense here. Again, I'm not sure why we have the second pit bull. I think that's also costing you. If either of those had been an Orca, this would have been a completely different story. I bring out my missiles, which managed to get into position to start fighting the pit bull, and then out comes the Orca, too late, when you now have nothing to fight. Unfortunate. Pit bulls, again, not sure why we need them. Nothing for you to fight with it. So the Orca and the pit bull at this point are 2 units that aren't doing anything for you. The drones can clear out the rifles, that's fine. My Talon's going to fight the Orca. To be honest with you, I'm not really that bothered about killing it because it's not really doing anything for you. I switch into air because now your pit bull is the only thing that can fight them, and the other units are useless. And I think we went into a bit of a scrap where it's just a bit of ring of roses with the units. And the APCs are too slow. So when the missile's about to fire, the APC is probably the most useless unit in your deck just because of how slow it is. It needed to have been on the pad when the missile's like half charged or less than half charged if it's going to have any impact. When they're there, they are exceptionally difficult to deal with, and that's why I'm trying to encourage you to learn how to do that for this deck. an APC being defended by another unit is incredibly awkward for the opponent to deal with, and in most cases requires them to actually play better than you. It puts the onus on them to have the right units, move them in the right way. It invests a lot of time and energy into trying to take it out, which allows you to pick fights elsewhere. And plus it just swallows up a lot of time, so it allows you with your sort of slightly less mobile units, or just gives you a bit of breathing room really. At this point, spamming out 2 APCs, not really going to do anything, but I guess maybe you kind of knew that you were going to lose the game anyway, but just a point at this moment. Missile finishes off. Yeah, so maybe have a look through this again. Have a think about some of the things that I've said. I think switching into the Orca would have been one of the key moments for you when you would have had a chance to sort of get onto that second deck, because onto the second missile, sorry, just because I had overcommitted into having riflemen and MLRS on the board. If you suddenly switched into a couple of Orcas, my MLRSs would have been taken out. I would then have to switch into the missile launcher troops. So if you spam out a couple of Orcas, get rid of my MLRS, and then follow up with anti-infantry, probably your own riflemen, you're actually in a really, really strong position compared to what you had there. But have a look through. Don't beat yourself up over it too much. There's just a few silly choices on there. Try not to overcommit to your pitbulls. They are good units, but just be very, very mindful that obviously you do want something for them to be able to shoot at that's going to be efficient.